Hey everybody, this is Hefty, and I'd like to welcome you to the first of what will hopefully be a series of short videos talking about comics, Comic Talk with Hefty. The way I want this to work is every video I'm going to have three recommendations for you. These are recommendations, and if you're looking to get into comics, if maybe you've watched a lot of the MCU movies and shows and have been interested in branching out but don't really know where to start or what to check out, or maybe you've been into comics but out of it for a while and are looking for something new as a recommendation. Also, we're going to be talking about those independent comics for those of you that might be interested in comics as a medium but don't really want to go the superhero route. Comics are a medium that encompasses all sorts of different genres. It's just like movies, just like books. There's no comic book genre. So I want to introduce you guys to some comics that maybe you aren't aware of that might pique your interest based off of what you typically look for in entertainment. So I want to start off first with a Marvel comic miniseries. Uh, I chose this one because it's been big in the news recently because they have announced they will be doing a limited series based off of the storyline on Disney Plus. They just finished up filming. This is the series from 2008 called Secret Invasion. And this series picks up after Civil War. If you guys ever saw the Civil War movie, you remember the basics of that, where there's this superhuman registration act, and Iron Man was pro registration. He felt that they should have government oversight. Captain America was anti registration. He didn't like the idea of them having to uh, report to higher ups that perhaps had political reasons for their choices. So this series takes place after that, and it involves the Skrulls, those aliens from the Captain Marvel movie. So in the aftermath of the Civil War, as I'm sure you can imagine, there's a lot of tension going on in the superhero universe. The people that had sided with Captain America, those people that were anti-registration, they were considered outlaws. They were on the run from the law. They were acting under the cover of night. And Iron Man and the rest of the pro registrations, part of their job was to round those guys up. So there was a lot of tension going on, very little trust happening in the superhero community on an Avengers mission against the Hand, which are the Japanese ninja clan that you usually see in like the Daredevil show and things like that. Elektra was killed, and when she died, she turned back into a scroll. They realized that the Elektra that they had known for God knows how long had actually been a scroll that had been impersonating Elektra. Uh, this caused a lot of confusion amongst the different heroes. You know, it made them realize that they didn't know who they could trust. That anybody could be uh, an undercover scroll. And this series picks up after that revelation, uh, and which the scroll have finally decided to take over the world and activate their embedded spies that they've placed all throughout the superhero community, the government, the military, uh, all around the world. They've slowly been infiltrating us. And what made this series very interesting for me was that idea of who can we trust. Any one of the heroes that you'd been reading about for God knows how long could have been a scroll the entire time, and you no longer knew if you could trust them. And the heroes in the series picked up on this too, thinking back to all the way back to the Civil War and even events before that. Maybe that person seemed to be acting out of the ordinary because they were actually a scroll. Maybe that's why Tony Stark went pro registration. Maybe that's why Captain America went anti registration, etc. Maybe all these schisms that had happened in the hero community leading up to and including the Civil War was all by design. And this series was a trip. Page by page, you didn't know who to trust. You didn't know which one of your favorite characters was actually going to turn out to be a scroll or was actually the real thing. This miniseries, Secret Invasion, you can pick up a trade paperback of the 8 issues. That is the full main storyline for Secret Invasion. Like any of the other massive crossovers that Marvel does pretty much on a yearly basis, there were tie-ins across all their series, X-Men, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Moon Knight, etc. Those do a good job of fleshing out what was happening in the world during this event, but it's not necessary reading. So you can get the full story just by reading the Secret Invasion trade paperback. But if you're interested in that and want to read more, like specifically what was Spider-Man doing during this time, how is Moon Knight dealing with all this, you can do that by picking up the tie-in issues from that series. But again, you don't need those to get the full story. It just helps flesh it out. But yeah, I know I'm personally going to go back and reread this before the series comes out. If you guys want to check it out, kind of get an idea of what this upcoming limited series could be all about, I think it's going to be a neat time. I think they could do a lot of fun things with it. Could really have some big surprises in the MCU. Maybe there's characters that we've been watching the MCU for a while now that turn out to be Skrulls. Who knows? And of course, there's always someone that might hope that uh, the Tony Stark that we last saw in Endgame, maybe that was a Skrull. Maybe the real Tony Stark's still out there. I don't think that's going to happen, but a series like this could really open doors to possibilities like that. So that would be my Marvel recommendation for the week. Go and check it out. I hope you enjoy it. So, all right, independent comics. During this section, you're going to hear me talk a lot about Image Comics. There's quite a few fantastic independent comic companies out there other than Image. Boom is great. Ablaze is great. Valiant has a lot of good stuff. IDW has amazing franchises. Uh, but for me, Image Comics has like top tier independent comics to check out. Image Comics, you might actually be familiar with them. You didn't realize it. They came out in the early 90s. Their biggest claim to fame was Todd McFarlane's Spawn. They ended up doing an HBO series out of and a movie back in the late 90s, and they're actually finishing up a Spawn movie right now. When they first started, they were very superhero-y, a little bit edgier. You had things like Youngblood, Wildcat, Savage Dragon, Gen 13, Cyberforce, Wetworks. But as time went on, they became more focused on allowing independent creators to come in and tell whatever stories they wanted. And because of that, they've released some fantastic series over the last couple decades that have absolutely nothing to do with superheroes. So you're talking horror, westerns, romances. It's across the board. And the first series that I want to pick out for the independent pick of the week this time is one of my personal favorites because it's so unique, it's so quirky, and it would be Rob Guillory and John Layman's Chew. The series ran from 2009 to 2016. There were 60 issues. Uh, you can pick them all up. They have 10 trade paperbacks of 6 issues apiece. Each 6 issues told a storyline. So it's like a 10 chapter series, if you will. This one is definitely worth checking out if you're into something a little bit offbeat. First off, and you can't really tell too much from the thumbnail here, but if you look it up, the artwork by Rob Guillory is fantastic. It is such a great mix of cartoon with a little bit of disturbingness to it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a little off kilter. And that art style fits perfectly for John Layman's script. So the idea behind this comic is um, there are people in the world that uh, have it's so weird just to describe. So the main character in this is Detective Tony Chu, and Tony Chu is what is called a cibopath, meaning when he eats something, he can see the memories of everything that went into that food. So, for example, if he ate a hot dog, he would be able to visualize everything that went into making that hot dog. And I don't even want to imagine what that's like. I'm sure that's the stuff of nightmares. Uh, and he's able to use this. ability as a detective by, say, you know, tasting something at a crime scene and seeing exactly how the crime scene played out, see exactly what happened. Uh, of course, this happens whenever he eats pretty much anything, except for beets for some weird reason. So he pretty much just eats beets because that's the only thing that doesn't give him these visions. So the series follows him and his partner as they go around and solve crimes, and yeah, basically he eats things or licks things to find out what happened, and he gets involved in this huge uh, worldwide conspiracy with secret organizations and assassins and fighting robot chickens and all sorts of other just surreal, crazy stuff that you can't imagine. It is the weirdest thing I've ever read, but I loved every minute of it. You guys should check it out. I think in doing some research for this video, Amazon, if you look up the first trade on Amazon, it's got one of those things where you can check out the first few pages. I highly recommend doing that. And like most Image comics, the first trade paperback is $9.99 US American. So I highly recommend checking that out. It's a little disturbing, a little bonkers, but definitely a great read. And finally, for this video, my current pick that I would tell you guys about. This one also I picked because it kind of ties into the MCU. Last week we got our first trailer for the upcoming She-Hulk series on Disney Plus. I'm very excited about. I hope they touch up the CGI a little bit from what we saw in the trailer, but I'm very excited about it. So, to that effect, Marvel just released a brand new She-Hulk series. This one just started a couple months ago. I think they're on issue 4 or 5 now. This one is written by Rainbow Rowell, who is a New York Times bestseller of young adult novels. She's written such books as Eleanor Park, Fangirl, Carry On. And she just recently finished up doing a run of the Marvel comic Runaways, and I thought she did a great job with that. I'm a huge fan of the original Runaways series by Brian K. Vaughan, and I thought this was a pretty good successor to that. So with She-Hulk, what's going on here is she's had a tough few years. She's been put through the ringer. She kind of lost her mind a little bit. She hulked out, which she normally doesn't do. And now she's through the magic of comic books, she's back to status quo, and she's trying to get her life back together. She's trying to get back into her law practice, and that's what this comic is about. It's her basically trying to restart her life. I think she's a great character. It's Stan Lee's final character that he created for Marvel single-handedly back in 1980. She's got all the powers of the Hulk, but not quite the strength. But she retains her personality. She doesn't turn into a giant toddler, and she's a lawyer. Um, and her series over the years, she's had quite a few series in the past 40 years, are usually kind of a mix of drama and comedy. It's always an entertaining series, uh, focusing a lot on kind of like what life would be like, what it would be like in real life to try and live a normal life as a superhero. To try and run a law practice as a superhero. Uh, this comic I've really enjoyed it so far. Personally, I've not read a lot of the She-Hulk series in the past. I've read some, but not a whole bunch. I wouldn't call myself an aficionado or anything. Uh, I'm used to her more as being like a secondary character or a team character in like an Avengers comic or something. But another thing that I really like about Rainbow Rowell's writing in this series is how welcoming she is. They do a great job in this comic of explaining who all the supporting characters are, of any important things that have happened in She-Hulk's past that you might not have read about. They'll either tell you all about it or give you little footnotes, letting you know where you can go to check it out. At no point in this I ever feel like I was lost or I had to do homework reading it. It's a fun little series. It's a very down to earth series. This isn't a series that I would say to check out if you want like big explosions and fights. But I do think it shows a really interesting slice of life about trying to live a life in Marvel's New York. And from what I've seen from the trailer, I have a feeling that's what the show is going to be mostly focused on. And I think that's great. That's kind of what She-Hulk's character has been since she's been created. Is it's almost a little bit farcical, uh, talking about how just crazy uh, the Marvel universe is without being over the top. All right, guys. Well, that's my recommendations for this week. Feel free to check them out. As always, uh, the trade paperbacks, the collections, the graphic novels, in this case, Secret Invasion and Chew, you can buy from Amazon, eBay, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. I'm sure tons of other websites too. They should be pretty cheap. Chew, like I said, should be $10 American. Secret Invasion, I don't know the cost off the top of my head, but I can't imagine it's more than 20 or 25 bucks. And remember, as always, if you want some super extra brownie points, extra cool points, go visit your local comic book store, ask them where the graphic novels and trade paperbacks are, and while you're there, pick up that new She-Hulk series that just came out. That's not available in trade paperback yet. That's too new, but that also means you're going to get it for cheap. I don't know if it's going to be a collector's item type series. I don't know if it's going to be worth money, but it's out right now and it's worth checking out. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.